The story begins with a jolt that tears through the sterile silence of the emergency ward, the kind of moment that splits one life into a before and an after. Nurse Armin Hale, exhausted after a 16-hour shift, had just stepped into the hallway to rub his temples when the doors burst open and paramedics rushed in a young woman whose skin looked like all the color had drained from her life. Her pulse was non-existent, her breathing a faint whisper slipping away, and Armin's tired eyes sharpened instantly, as if his heart jumped awake before his body did. He didn't know the woman's name. He didn't know her story. All he felt was that silent scream inside him, "Not another loss today, please." If you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, ripple this moment of love by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Armin moved with an urgency powered by something deeper than skill. It was the fire of someone who had lost too much to let death win easily. The young woman's expensive silk blouse seemed out of place in the fluorescent hospital lights, her delicate hands marked with faint scratches as though she had been desperately fighting something before collapsing. Her eyes were half open, unfocused, as if her body remained on the edge of surrender. Armin started compressions, his fingers trembling from exhaustion but his resolve stronger than ever. He whispered a silent prayer even as he worked, one he had repeated countless times since losing his wife 3 years ago in the same hospital. Saving lives wasn't just his profession, it had become his redemption. The ward around him looked almost surreal in the daytime sunlight streaming through the tall side windows, turning dust particles into floating gold. Monitors beeped erratically, nurses hurried past, and the smell of antiseptic layered over the metallic tang of adrenaline. Every second stretched and folded like time didn't know whether to collapse or hold itself together. Armin's world narrowed to the fragile chest beneath his hands. He didn't see the expensive jewelry, the designer shoes, or the encrypted phone dropped from her purse that flashed with notifications. He only saw the fear that lived behind his ribs, the fear of failing one more person, one more family, one more soul. The woman's heart refused to respond at first. He pushed harder, counting breaths, sweat trailing down the side of his face. For a moment, he felt something break inside him, the weight of working double shifts to provide for his 8-year-old daughter Eliza, the debt stacking on his kitchen table, the fatherhood guilt that gnawed at him every time he left her with his aging mother. It collapsed into that moment, threatening to crush him. But he kept going, because stopping meant accepting defeat, and Armin had already made a promise to himself after losing his wife: as long as he had hands that worked and a heart that beat, he would not give up on anyone. Then it happened, a trembling, tiny spark of life. The monitor jumped. A blip. Another. Her heart began beating again, fragile but defiantly alive. Relief hit Armin so intensely his knees nearly buckled. The other nurses gasped, some covering their mouths, and the sunlight seemed to brighten like the universe was exhaling with him. He didn't know who she was, but he felt an inexplicable connection, the kind that felt less like coincidence and more like fate gently placing two wounded souls in each other's path. She was moved to a room near the window, the morning sky painting her pale face with warmth. While stabilizing her foreline, Armin studied her features, a woman in her early 30s, elegant yet visibly burdened, as if her beauty had been weighed down by unseen storms. Her hands twitched occasionally, a sign her body was fighting its way back into the world. He wondered who would come looking for her. Family? Friends? Someone who cared? But no one came. The hours passed, shifts changed, and still her room remained quiet except for the rhythmic hum of machines. Armin found himself checking on her more than required, but not out of protocol. Something about her unconscious presence softened the ache he carried. In the outside world, his life remained a storm. His daughter had called asking if he would make it home in time to see her present her drawing for a school project. He had whispered apologies he was tired of giving. His supervisor reminded him his paperwork was pending. His landlord left another message hinting at overdue rent. But here, in the small quiet room where the stranger slept between life and death, Armin felt oddly anchored. As daylight shifted to afternoon glow, the woman finally began to stir. Her lashes fluttered. Her fingers moved. Her breathing deepened. Armin felt a surge of anticipation as she opened her eyes slowly, confusion swirling through the soft brown irises. She looked as though she had woken not from sleep but from a long and painful nightmare, one she wasn't ready to face. She didn't remember collapsing. She didn't remember the attack of chest pressure while walking out of a corporate conference she wanted to escape. She didn't remember trying to call someone before darkness swallowed her. She especially didn't remember the nurse who fought for her life with a desperation more personal than professional. Her voice was hoarse when she whispered, and each word sounded heavy with vulnerability. She asked where she was, what happened, why she was alone. Armin explained gently, trying to ease her panic. Her name, she said after a moment, was Celine Ward, though she said it with the tone of someone used to hiding behind it. She avoided his eyes at first, but when she finally met his gaze, something inside her softened. She saw not just a nurse, but a man carrying storms he didn't talk about. His uniform was slightly worn, his hands rough, his face marked with fatigue that came from nights without rest, yet there was a kindness in his expression that felt unfamiliar to her world. As hours unfolded, Armin learned fragments of her truth, though she revealed only surface-level details. She lived alone. She worked too much. She had no one she trusted enough to list as an emergency contact. What she didn't say was that she was the owner of half the companies featured in the glossy magazine stacked in the waiting room, a billionaire whose life had become a golden prison of deals, pressure, corporate wars, and a loneliness even money couldn't fix. She didn't want him to treat her differently, and for the first time in years, she felt safe being just a patient. Armin's gentle way of explaining her recovery plan made her feel seen, not managed. And when he stepped out to take a phone call from his daughter, a short conversation filled with affection, exhaustion, and quiet guilt, Celine listened without meaning to. She watched him lean against the wall, rubbing his forehead, apologizing for missing another school moment. There was a tenderness in his voice that pierced her chest more deeply than the pain that had brought her here. The next day, Armin showed up with a handmade card his daughter insisted he deliver to the lady he saved. It was clumsy, bright, and covered in glitter. Celine held it like it was the most precious thing anyone had ever given her. Something in her chest cracked open, and she felt warmth she hadn't felt in years, the warmth of being valued for simply existing. As she recovered, Celine discovered Armin's life piece by piece, his struggle, his perseverance, his dreams on hold. She watched him treat every patient with the same devotion he gave her, yet she could sense the invisible weight he carried. She had never met someone who gave so much while having so little. And for the first time in a long time, she wished she could give something meaningful back. When discharge day arrived, she looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. She didn't want to disappear from his life like people usually did. And Armin didn't know how to express the strange ache rising in his chest as she prepared to leave. She had become a small light in his tiring days, a reminder that connection still existed in the world. Before leaving, Celine asked quietly if she could see him again. Armin's heart stumbled, but he nodded with a soft, tired smile. He had no idea that the woman whose life he saved owned empires, commanded industries, and could change his future with a single decision. Nor did he know she was already planning something that would reshape both their lives. If this story has touched your heart so far, support it with a like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your kindness keeps these emotional stories alive. Before the final emotional ending, please comment below what moment hit you the hardest. Celine did not return to her corporate tower immediately. Instead, she spent days thinking about Armin, about the way he had fought for her without knowing who she was, about the pure heart that existed in a world driven by wealth and ambition. She realized something life-changing. She didn't just owe him her life, she wanted to be part of his. So she came back to the hospital, not as a billionaire with influence, not as a woman recovering from near death, but as someone ready to give something back to the man who reminded her what humanity looked like. She approached Armin outside during his break, the sunlight bathing them both in soft gold. Her voice trembled as she told him she had set up a trust fund for